let me give you a formula. You hear Esther Perel, who's this, big time, incredible therapist that's, giving people relationship advice. She has a line that she says, the quality of your life is commensurate to the quality of your relationships. You hear that a lot. Tony Robbins uses that a lot, is that line as well, right?
Yep.
But I want to let's continue with that. Well, then how do you have quality relationships? I would say one aspect of a quality relationship is the quality of your conversations. How are you having good conversations? And so how do you have good conversations? Quality questions.
Quality questions lead to quality conversations.
Lead to quality relationships, will lead to a better quality of life. And we don't. So then the question is, how do you ask good questions? And there's two parts. Even before we ask the quality questions, which are imperative, you actually need to create the space to ask those questions.
This is Eric Worre. Welcome to the Excellence Project. And today I have guest Topaz Adizes. He is an Emmy Award-winning writer, director, and experienced design architect. He's an Edmund Hillary Fellow and Sundance School Stories of Change Fellow. His works have been selected to Cannes, Sundance, IDFA, and South by Southwest, featured in New Yorker Magazine, Vanity Fair, and the New York Times. He has an Emmy Award for new approaches to documentary and 2 World Press Photo Awards for immersive storytelling and interactive documentary. He's the founder and executive director of the Experience Design Studio, The Skin Deep. Topaz studied philosophy at UC Berkeley and Oxford University, speaks 4 languages, currently lives in Uruguay with his wife and 2 children. We talk about the 12 questions for love, how to build stronger relationships, how to improve the quality of the conversations in your business, which is going to improve the quality of your business and your life. I think you're going to find it fascinating. I know that I did. So with no further ado, let's jump right into my conversation with Topaz Adizes. Topaz Adizes, how are you?
Doing good. Good to have you. Good to see you.
I'm glad that you're here, and I'm excited for this conversation. You're the founder of Skin Deep, which I want to dig into. You're the creator of The which I want to dig into. And you're the author of 12 Questions for Love, which I want to dig into. Now, in addition, in the intro, I told everybody about your Emmy Awards and all of your fancy stuff, all of your accolades that you've collected over the years. But why don't we start with Skin Deep? Tell me about this project and how was it created and what's it all about?
So the Skin Deep, we call it the Skin Deep, we're an experience design studio. What does that mean? We create experience, because basically 11 years ago, I looked around and I said, wow, technology is changing so many things, right? It's changing our monetary value. You have crypto now. You're changing, at that point, the political system. Obama used technology and such to like motivate the grassroots movement, and so did Trump and such. And the question was that I didn't see people asking was, how is technology changing the human emotional experience of being alive? Because in the past, our parents or grandparents used to write letters to their loved ones, and they'd wait for 2 or 3 weeks for that letter to come back. Or you'd get in the elevator and you'd actually talk to the person next to you, or on the airplane or in the taxi cab. Nowadays, everyone's siloed off in their digital tool, right? You can get on a plane for an 8-hour flight and not even speak to the person that you're rubbing shoulders with. You can get in that elevator and take 15 floors down, and you're just on your siloed phone having a conversation with the world, but not even recognizing people around you. So, and we humans are so good at adapting to change that we assume it's always been this way, right? It's like always, like love is the same thing. We say the same words, love, but I don't think love is the same thing. I don't think when grandma used to write her love letter, or my dad wrote love letters and put it in the mail and waited 3 weeks for a response, that sentiment of love is not the same thing now when you send a voice note and you're waiting for a response, in a direct message. It's not the same thing. We call it the same, and yes, but just the emotional experience of living is shifting, and I wanted to explore that. And so we created an experience design studio, The idea was, let's create experiences that illuminate our connection to one another, that create, to bring more conscientiousness to the way we relate to one another. And so we did that, and we've done well, and kind of the flagship.
So how does that represent it? How does that represent itself?
Well,
that was the thought, the mission.
Sure. Well, the flagship experience we built was called The And, right? So just think of the Skin Deep as HBO, and HBO has a bunch of shows, and one of our shows is called The And.
And the and is?
The and is about the space between, because the relationship is not you or I, us or them. It's you and I, us and them. It's the and that connects us. It's the and that's the conjunction. It's the and that's the space between. So we wanted to illuminate that. And the way we did that was bring people into a room who are in a relationship, be it grandparents, their children, lovers, exes, best friends, cousins, put them together and give them questions to ask one another. It's almost like therapy, but without a therapist. And two people are facing each other. They only have each other to contend with. And we film it with 3 cameras, a wide shot, so you see them both in profile, but more importantly, 2 close-ups. And we always show you both faces at the same time. Always. And why is that important? Well, because think about it. Think about all the content that you watch, whether it's on your phone, on TikTok and Instagram, or on TV, in a film, whatever, Netflix. You always see the person talking. You're not seeing the person listening at the same time. And so what that's subconsciously telling you is that the speaker is what's important, not the listener. And what we're suggesting by always showing you both is that it's not just the speaker, it's the listener too. As a matter of fact, it's both of them. It's the connection. And that's what the and is. And we've been doing that for 11 years now. And
1,250 episodes or something?
Yeah. 1,250 conversations.
Where can people find that to just look at the conversations?
YouTube, go to our YouTube channel for The Skin Deep. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok. And we put the short content pieces, like just moments, on YouTube Shorts and TikTok and Instagram. But the actual conversation that we cut down from an hour to really offer you 12 minutes of a digital dose of humanity is on our YouTube channel, The Skin Deep.
I want to dig into it because, the entrepreneurs in our audience, they're in relationship with their teams. They're in relationship with their significant
clients,
others.
With everyone, right?
They're in relationship with their companies. So they're in relationship in a lot of different ways. And the value of our life is really the value of our network and the relationships in that network and the strength of those relationships, the resilience of those relationships. Yeah, they did a Harvard study that talked about longevity and that they've been doing for a long time. You probably know about it, but they found that the number one attribute of people who live long lives were the quality friendships they had outside of their family. How many quality friends did they have that contributed? And quality friends have got to come from the and, building real relationship with somebody instead of being as transactional as we've tended to become.
Let me give you a formula. You hear Esther Perel, who's this, big time, incredible therapist that's, giving people relationship advice. She has a line that she says, the quality of your life is commensurate to the quality of your relationships. You hear that a lot. Tony Robbins uses that a lot.
Sure.
Is that line as well, right?
Yep.
But I want to let's continue with that. Well, then how do you have quality relationships? I would say one aspect of a quality relationship is the quality of your conversations. How are you having good conversations? And so how do you have good conversations? Quality questions.
Quality questions lead to quality conversations.
Lead to quality relationships, will lead to a better quality of life. And we don't. So then the question is, how do you ask good questions? And there's 2 parts. Even before we ask the quality questions, which are imperative, you actually need to create the space to ask those questions. So let me give you an example. You come home tonight, and your wife comes to you and says, Eric, I love you so much. You mean so much to me. You're the most important soul I've ever. You're like, whoa. Where's this coming from? You're not actually receiving. You're not accepting. You're not letting this hit you. You're going, where the hell is this coming from? Because the space has not been created. Similarly, if you come home tonight and you tell your wife how much you love her, or you come home and you say, she says to you, similarly, if you come home and she says, Eric, why do you love me? Now, you're not going to think about why you love her. You're going to first think about, where's this coming from?
Why are you
Why
asking
is she asking me this question? So before we even have the quality questions, we actually need to create the space. And that's what I've learned from the last 11 years of holding the space of over 1,200 conversations, is that create the space, and we can talk about what that means, and create quality questions. You do that, you're going to have better conversations, better relationships. It's going to amplify your life.
And this applies to, the quality questions applies to everything, right? With clients.
Oh my gosh.
It applies to work relationships. It applies to family relationships.
And our own relationship with ourselves.
Yeah. Quality questions of yourself.
I mean, you wake up in the morning, and if we don't realize that we're always answering questions, and we're so good at answering questions that we're actually not paying attention to the question. You wake up in the morning and the first thought you goes, oh shoot, I got to do that today. Well, actually that is an answer to a question. So instead of dealing with the fact that, oh shoot, I have to do that today, stop and say, wait, what's the question I'm asking myself? What's the hardest thing I have to do today? Oh shoot, I got to do that. Okay, stop, change the question. In this day where you know it's going to be a tough day, what's the one thing I can learn from it that will make me better for the next? If you just change the question, you'll get a better answer. And we are shaped by the questions we ask, not the answers we seek. We are shaped by the questions we ask, not the answers we seek. And we oftentimes forget that because we're in a Western society. We're also about what are you doing, productivity. And like, you're so focused on the answer, you're not focusing on the question. Change the question, answer becomes simple and obvious.
I love that. Change the question. Say it again.
Change the question, the answer becomes, focus on the question. Don't focus on the answer. When you're up against it and you're banging your head against the wall, it's because you're not asking a quality question.
So how did you
focus on the question?
How did you learn how to improve the quality of the question?
Because for the last 11 years, I've been bringing people into a space where I've been giving them questions and having the privilege and the honor
to just testing the questions, basically?
Yeah. Sitting back and watching. I am not a trained therapist. I'm just a real interesting person who's curious about humanity.
You're an interested person.
I'm an interested person. Yeah. Did I say interesting? That's kind of...
You're interesting too.
But I'm very interested. I'm very curious.
But you're so you're curious. So you'll put people together that have some sort of relationship. Doesn't even matter what kind. And you'll have them ask the other a question that you designed, and you just sit back and watch.
Yep. And we film it. And so that's what we do in our productions. And basically at this point, we have a community of people who've been watching us and playing our card games for so many years that their relationships are informed by the conversations they've seen on our YouTube channel and videos, as well as by playing the and card games in their life. We have 15 editions, so you could play in different relationships. And so now when we do a production in Atlanta or New York or Austin or wherever it is, just did one in London, people fly in for it. They fly in on their own to have the experience, and they fill out a questionnaire prior, and I read in private both, they fill out questionnaires, both participants, and I can see where's the opportunity for growth here. What are they not talking about? What are they hesitant to talk about? Where do they see things differently and the same but are not yet communicating? Where's the opportunity here? And then I posit questions in a sequence that then gives them an opportunity to explore that if they so wish. And that's basically what I've distilled down into the book. The book is a learning of doing this first. And think about it. How often in our lives do we actually get to see the intimate space of relationships?
Yeah.
You don't. I mean, you don't. And my team and I have been so fortunate that people have trusted us and they've opened themselves up to us, that they're willing to step in this space and courageously share themselves. And frankly, one of the rules, because it's very important to create boundaries in a space to make it safe, is that you don't have to answer the question if you don't want. You don't have to answer the question. And we could talk about that. What does it mean to create safe space? Not to be confused with comfortable space. Because you can be in a safe space and be uncomfortable. That's actually where you want to be. People oftentimes confound comfort with safety. No, safety and uncomfortable, i.e. you're going to jump off a cliff with a bungee cord. You're totally safe in theory, but you're uncomfortable. That's good. You're going to have a great experience. So the thing about creating safe space, albeit so that you can lean into discomfort, then it's about constructing really quality questions.
What I can't wait. I'm a big reader. I can't wait to read the book. I haven't read the book. I've read the advanced reader's copy, kind of summary of it. But getting into the, to go through 1,200 conversations and end up with 12 questions, that's pretty special. I mean, that to be able to know these questions are going to be the ones that create a better connection. There's two things that came to mind as you were talking about this. There's a documentary, part of how you're described as an experienced design architect.
Yeah.
Which I love that moniker, an experienced design architect. I'm a big documentary viewer. And if you ever see the documentary, The Artist is Present, Marina Abramovich.
Oh, sure. Yeah. That's come up. Yes.
Yeah. So she did this thing at MoMA in New York.
I saw it. When I was living in New York. Yeah, absolutely.
Did you see?
I didn't sit down in the chair opposite her.
You didn't sit in the chair?
People. No, it was a long line.
Oh my gosh. But so I'll describe it. She's part of the exhibit. She's there to kind of, she's a controversial figure and forget about that. But she created this exhibit that basically was like a big rectangular chalk line, probably 30 feet by 60 feet, something like that. And she's sitting in a chair in a gown all day. She doesn't leave the chair.
At MoMA, in New York, at MoMA.
At MoMA, at this art exhibit.
New York.
And one by one, people wait in line and they go across from her. They're not allowed to touch her or anything, but they go across and they sit in another chair. She has her head down, and when she's composed and ready, she lifts her head up, and they just look at each other, and they just have a moment. And I mean, people are emotional wrecks. And I don't know how long it even is, like a minute.
Depends on how long they sit
2
there
minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
But in the documentary, what was fascinating for me on the human connection part is she had a boyfriend, lover, that they had performed together. One of their most famous ones is she started on one side of the Great Wall of China. He started on the other side, and they walked the entire Great Wall, and they met halfway along the way, and then they kept going. And they documented this whole thing as a art piece, kind of performance art. Well, they had broken up. He shows up at MoMA and ends up being one of the people who ends up sitting across from her. And after like 12 years, amazing. You see the complete difference in connection. So I've always found that fascinating. I've almost wanted to do that in my world, like replicate that in my world and make a connection with my audience that way, one by one, creating an environment like that, because it was just so interesting for me emotionally to watch. So different, so kind of, I mean, a deep eye to eye thing is rare. You go to a restaurant, people don't look at their server almost ever.
People don't even look at the person sitting across from them. Let's be honest.
Right.
How often are we really
whatever?
Yeah. Or how often are we really stepping into the space of the other person, looking them in the eye and being present and breathing with them in the eye? It's rare.
So anyway, that was one that came to mind. The other that came to mind, and you'll laugh, is a reality. So my wife and I, we work hard all day. And at night, we have this huge screen TV outside. So our little routine is when the sun goes down, we go outside, and it's, we live in Vegas, so we do that pretty much year round. We go outside and we turn on the big screen TV and we watch something. Sometimes we'll watch a podcast on YouTube. Sometimes we'll watch a documentary. Sometimes we'll watch a movie. Sometimes it's a rom-com, whatever. Well, guess what we just binge watched? Love Island.
How is that? How is that show?
Dude.
It's addicting, right? It's got to be addicting.
the I turned it on kicking and screaming. Like, why? Because our son was like, hey, you got to watch this. Season 6, you got to watch it. Everybody's talking about it. So they take six guys and 6 girls who are all single. They put them into a villa in the middle of nowhere. But here was the takeaways that I got from it that relate to this. And then the producers create radical drama. They bring in, gorgeous bombshells out of the blue. Once people start getting coupled up, they'll bring in somebody else even more beautiful to come in and mess things up or whatever, to see what happens in human connection. But they don't have any technology inside of this villa. So there's nothing to other than a phone in order to get a text message from the producers to do a thing, a task or a challenge or something. All they have is each other. And then they don't even leave there unless instructed. So what struck me, because we watched the finale last night, literally. What struck me is for 6 weeks, they're constantly going up and saying, hey, can I pull you for a chat? Hey, can I pull you for a chat? Hey, can I pull you for a chat? And all they did was sit around and talk to each other for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And it was like they had 1,000 dates. Because, they became best friends, the guys and the girls, and I mean, the tears and the laughter and all of this stuff. And they had no tech at all. All they had was, can I pull you for a chat? And sitting around talking. The girls sitting around talking, while they're putting on their makeup. The guys sitting around talking, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And what do you think about, what are your feelings and where are you going with this? And you could see with 1,000 dates how relationships would be built in a forced environment. So you end up feeling like there's a pretty good chance for like 3 or 4
connection.
of them. Real connection. Real connection. So from a silly reality show, I was just like, I was fascinated by how different that is from our normal world. And like you said, how everybody's siloed off on their social, and that has trained them for dopamine hits that are different than meaningful conversation hits. I mean, there's been sometimes it's one-on-one like this kind of conversation. And sometimes it's really interesting, half a dozen people or so. And the questions are amazing and the answers are even more amazing and the dynamic is amazing.
Are you talking about, are you still on Love Island or are you talking about something else?
No, I'm just talking about in my personal life now.
In your life. So sometimes it's one-on-one and sometimes it's with a group of people. Yeah,
but like an interesting group asking the right questions. Like I'm useless in a country club environment with meaningless conversation. I cannot tolerate going to
you're gonna love my card games then. I'm gonna send you a card game. You're gonna love it.
I'll get them all. And we're gonna put links to everything in the chat so people can get the card games, get all that stuff.
Yeah.
Meaningful conversation, meaningful topics. My wife's the same. So you go to a neighbor's house and, people have a dinner and wine or whatever, and the guys go out on the deck and the girls are sitting around the dining room table or something. And my wife is texting me saying, you got to get me out of here. I can't deal with this gossipy, nonsensy, wives of entrepreneur shit. I can't deal with it. You got to get me out of here. Let's go talk to each other. That's fine. But this is meaningless. I cannot tolerate meaningless environments and meaningless conversations. I'm useless in it. But if it's meaningful, You know, if it's a special conversation and it goes like, you know, usually like you say it goes with the right questions, starts with the right questions. I mean, they're so special.
Yeah,
You know,
and
you grow
to me,
with
it's
them.
well constructed questions. It's well constructed questions, and it's something that we're not taught. We're not taught how to ask well constructed questions. Matter of fact, we're asking questions that we get from society, from culture, from our parents, from our friend group. We're actually not thinking about what are the questions we're asking each other, and what are the questions we're asking ourselves. Put more emphasis in that. It's like a unique thumbprint. We all have a unique thumbprint, but you're not discovering your unique identity and thumbprint if you're not asking yourself unique questions that are unique to you. Why'd you, yeah.
I like asking questions, and so I'm always trying to steer the topic into something that's meaningful or valuable or not
What do you do?
meaningless.
What about the people? Because there's a lot of people who don't like to do that.
I
I have
know.
family members who are
We
not.
we just don't hang out.
You don't hang out, but do you? But clearly you have family members, right? You must have
Yeah.
family members who at
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, they're not into having those. They don't want to. That's like it's painful for them. It's uncomfortable. They want to stay on the surface. How do you handle that? And what's your answer to that? Because that's something that I get a lot in questions too, and I have it in my family. And
Yeah.
I think every family has
I
it.
will tell you, I'm not as good as I'd like to be at the questions inside of that dynamic. You know, like, you know, we just now became empty nesters and our youngest went to college. You know, you're beginning the process.
Yeah.
You know, so we're at a different end. You know, we got grandkids.
Yeah.
So the youngest just went to college. How do you ask questions of a teenager that where it won't just be one word answers,
Right.
and everybody gets frustrated? You know, how was your day? Great. You know, so what's going on in your life?
Yeah.
Nothing. You know, how was school? Boring. So learning
Yeah.
how to, you know, there've been times when, you know, now that he's in college, he's been in college for, you know, just a short period of time. The conversations are already better because he's figuring out life, laundry, food, you know, how to get places and how to make sure his schedule's, you know, right, and all that stuff. So how's that making you feel? And are you nervous about rushing for your fraternity? And you know, are people different there, you know, than your friend group in school, in high school, and stuff like that? And or asking my kids about their kids and, you know, what's happening with that, and you know, what are they learning from the little ones, and, you know, those types of things. I try, but, you know, I would say I have a lot of room to grow when it comes to, I'm good at tactical. Sometimes when it comes to building teams and all of that. And a lot of times as an introverted person, I kind of get stuck in my head. So questions are kind of a way to keep things off of me as an introvert.
Right.
So it might be a bit of a mechanism, as a coping mechanism as an introvert, to just ask, you know, to be a question asker instead of, you know, pontificating.
But it's also I have a friend who's an introvert, and we had this live experience. So the same thing you see in the videos we create in a group of 50 or 2,000 people. And he goes, you know, I didn't realize until this experience that I'm an introvert, and I thought I don't get energy from people. What I realized, I don't get energy from superficial conversations. I get energy from meaningful. So I'm introvert, and I need meaningful conversations, which is exactly what you're saying.
Same.
And so I think that some of us get energy from those conversations. And the question is, for instance, you like, how could you create the space that's most conducive for that, so that you create this boundary space so that we know what we're doing there. We've answered questions so that we've answered the unnecessary questions, and now we could actually delve into something deeper. And then how do you construct those questions? So don't construct a question that begins with is our due. You do
Is
that.
are and do.
Okay, I mean, it's like is, are, do, whatever it is, should, is, are, do. Okay, give me any question after should. The answer is either yes or no. Is this, and that? Yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
Do we do this? Yes or no. So you start with those words alone, you're already asking for a binary response.
Mm.
And sometimes maybe in business, you need a clear response. It's either this or that. But if you're looking to explore your relationship, to deepen a relationship, right, to have the cathartic conversation, you're not looking for the binary yes or no. You're looking for why, how, what.
Right.
Right? You start with those questions. How do you feel about our connection? Why do you think we have our conflicts, and what is it teaching us?
Right.
How can we improve our connection? How can we have the greatest time today? Like those.
So
you start with
the ones that give me the ones that were non-binary.
Why, what, how. There's more. I can break it down more, but that's a great way to. Yeah, that's a great way. So first, there's 5 things to asking a good question in context of a relationship. One is don't do binary. I'm talking about exploring your relationship. This is what I'm talking about. You want to explore your connection with someone? You want to have a cathartic conversation? A, don't make a binary question. 2, ask a question that's constructive. So if you ask the question to your partner or your business partner or to your best friend, why do we fight so much? Okay, you're going to get a litany of reasons why you fight so much. Our brains are faithful dogs that chase any stick you throw. But you can decide where you're throwing the stick. Am I going to throw the stick in the mud by asking a question, why do we fight so much? Or instead, am I going to throw the stick on a beautiful hill overlooking the San Francisco Bay? This question like that would be, what's our biggest conflict right now? What do you think it's teaching us? How does conflict make us better? So you can actually construct a question that's going to give you a more constructive response. That's how I mean that the question shapes the answer.
Interesting.
Why did she or he dump me? Okay, well, I can give you your brain, your faithful dog is going to chase that stick no matter where you throw it. Why they dump me? Okay, because this, that. How good are you going to feel when you get that the dog brings the stick back?
Or
your mind.
What could I learn from it or something?
How is it actionable? Instead, throw the stick, ask a more constructive question. What am I learning from that relationship that I'll carry to the next?
Yeah. Is there a repeating pattern that I can
improve on?
At least be aware of?
Yeah. So ask a different question to give you more constructive answers that puts you in a more empowering position, give you more agency for change.
Okay. So that's number 2. What's number 3?
Number 3. Here's what's really good. People miss this all the time. You want to ask a connective question. What do I mean? Look, if I go, Eric, what scares you so much? You go, snakes. Your wife says, Eric, what scares you so much? Snakes. The barista at the local coffee shop goes, hey, Eric, what scares you so much? Snakes. What scares you so much does not acknowledge the people in conversation, the one who's asking the question. Make it connective. So what does that mean? Eric, what do you think scares both of us so much? What do you think scares both of us so much? If I ask you that, it's going to be different. And the response, the answer will be different than if your wife asked it and the barista on this cafe asked you that. The question acknowledges the connection. So you're on a date. What do you think about love? Oh my God, how boring is that? How many dates are you going on? Or you're in a business meeting and you ask the question, what's our strategy? Okay, I mean, everyone how do you think we see strategy the same and different? See how that question acknowledges it cannot be the same if a different person asks it. So bring conscience to the question so it acknowledges the person asking it. Because that does 2 things. A, it's going to be unique to the person you're in conversation with. But B, you who are asking the question, or whoever's asking, is going to be more invested in the response. Because part of your response is acknowledging me. What I bring to the table.
So you have... So before we get to 4 or 5, do you have
3.
card game? You have card games that will prompt all this?
Oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely. So I have
Awesome. I'm getting them all.
Yeah. And for teams, we have a team building deck coming out in November. It's amazing. Awesome. Yeah, it's awesome. It's team building. We have a co-workers deck. We basically are bringing the ant to work. That's what we're doing this fall. And so I can't. We test all our products every Friday amongst our team on a call, and we play it and we see what works and what's not and how to make it better. In addition to in production, and the team building one is just
how many decks do you have? Do you know?
I have we have 15 physical decks, and I think we have another 5 digital decks.
15?
You can buy 15 physical decks that you buy. Yep. I got them over there. I can show you. And then we have 5 digital ones.
Love it. And you're doing some stuff outside of the personal relationship into organizational, corporate, team building, those types of things. That will be
matter of fact. That's we get. I mean,
I'd like to use them just personally for the masterminds that I host, and
I'm going to send them your way. And you will let me know how amazing they are. I have no doubt. I'm sending them your way to Las Vegas. They're going to arrive by Friday.
I love it.
I mean, you let me know. Yeah. So
yeah, I love it. All right.
I mean, so number four.
The questions. Number 4. So number one, don't do binary. Number 2, ask constructive questions. Number 3, ask connective questions. Something around
that acknowledge the relationship that are unique, so that the answer you get is unique to who you're in conversation with. Number 4, there's 2 parts to this, 2 sides of a coin. 1, you want to ask unexpected questions. What am I talking about? There's 2 forms of that. One form of an unexpected question is connect 2 things that are not usually connected. So, what does earning money cost me? How does conflict make us better? What is the truth we hate telling ourselves? What is the lie we love telling ourselves? See how I'm connecting.
So it's the negative and the positive, kind of.
Then it's the negative and the positive. So it's mixing the 2, but asking things that we don't often connect. We don't often connect 2 different. We don't often connect the idea of how is the pursuit of money? What is that costing me? Right?
Or not pursuing money. What is it costing you?
Sure. Or what is it gaining me?
Yeah.
I'm just saying you want to connect different ideas together, because that's almost like connecting 2 neural nodes in your brain for the first time, and you have to take a pause. So in our relationship, in our company, in our team, what is the truth we hate telling ourselves? Ooh, okay, let me take a pause there. I don't have that. If I asked you and said, what's our goal this year? Every person on the team knows the answer. It's like, bop, right? But what is the truth we hate telling ourselves? That is going to require a pause, because we don't ask ourselves that often.
For sure.
If at all. So create these pauses so that you can wait a second. And in that pause is space. Is space of a path, of a script that we haven't, it's not well tread. So we can actually explore it and discover it. The flip side of that is ask questions that put other people in each other's shoes. Eric, what do you think is the hardest thing being your friend? So if you're going to answer that, you have to put yourself in the shoes of your friends, and you got to look at yourself.
I'm just writing this down.
Yeah. So putting each other in each other's shoes is great. Like, what is another one for businesses? I say, which I love. This one's, what's a value we do not share with our clients? So that puts yourself in clients, but yeah, that's a pause, because you have to be in your client's shoes and look back. But also you don't often ask that. You're always asking, what are the values we share with our clients? What do we not share with our clients?
Right.
And the last one, yes, go ahead.
Well,
the last one, the
we
fifth
have 5
aspect,
already.
No, the unexpected has 2 sides of a coin. One is,
so ask questions that put people in other shoes is part of part 4?
Yeah, exactly. And number 5 is, look, the questions cannot have an agenda. Someone asks you a question, my mom's a therapist. When I was a kid, anytime she asked me a question, it was like, you already know the answer to this. Why even ask me?
Right.
when when someone comes to you with a question that they're just setting you up. We're not having a conversation. We're playing chess.
Well, that's a salesperson.
Then you're not. The heart's not coming out. The brain is coming out. The dogs are coming out to chase the sticks. You want to connect with someone. You got to invite the heart out. So ask questions that do not have an agenda. Offer them as gifts. Offer your questions as gifts, which means they don't have to answer it. Which means you are really curious about it. So when you want to talk to your partner because they did something that pissed you off, your business partner, your friend, your lover, and you're like, wait, why did you? And you're like coming at them already. That's going to put them against the wall, going to be defensive, and they're not actually going to open up. You got to take a pause. I got to be curious about this. I've been working with this person. They're my colleague for 5 years. We're going after the same goals. I feel like they did something that lack of trust or respect. So instead of going for the first answer, why'd you do this? It's like, wait, what is your curiosity? I really want to know. Why did you do this? So then you shape that question from that curiosity, and that's where you're offering as a gift, and they can feel it, and then they'll step forward. Those are the 5 things.
Don't do binary. Ask constructive questions. Ask connective questions, something that combines the two of you. Ask unexpected questions, like mixing positive and negative. Or putting yourself into other people's shoes, and ask questions that don't have an agenda, or don't have an agenda when you're asking questions.
Yeah,
Offer them as gifts.
You got to and how do you do that? You got to tap in your curiosity. And
so really fascinating. Most of my training, I've trained millions of people around the world in my particular niche. It's teaching them how to ask questions. And most of the time it's in team building oriented stuff, either sales or team building. But there's, after a presentation, there's 6 questions to ask. That I teach everybody. Ask these questions in order to be able to get to a sale or get to the next step. Move.
Give me one. Forward. Give me one. Can you give me your favorite?
I'll give you all 6.
Okay, great.
Let's say I have a business opportunity for you, and it's a part-time side hustle. Okay. And I show you some video or something, and I say, Topaz, what'd you like best about what I just showed you? Question number 1, which kind of forces them to go into their head and find something
positive. Sure.
Yeah. Or, it could be negative too. It kind of doesn't matter.
But you say, what do you like best?
I like that it's over. I like that I don't have to listen to it anymore. Or, so question number 2 is, on a scale of 1 to 10, just give me an idea of where you're at after seeing this. You gave me answer number 1. Scale of 1 to 10, where would you put yourself as far as like your likelihood of doing this, or even exploring it further? And you get a lot of 5, 6s, and 7s. If somebody says a 7, they're going to join. But they could say -5, and it's still fine. Whatever number I've said, why do you give me, as a kind of a follow up, why that number? I'm curious. So they'll give me a little bit more, right? So that's question number 2. And then you get into question 3 is, hypothetically, Topaz, off the record, just between you and me, if you did decide to do this, how much would you need to earn per month to make it worth your time? If you did decide to do it part-time, how much money would you need to earn in order to make this worth your time? Because everybody has a number that's worth their time. How much would you want to earn? It's the wrong question. How many dollars would be worth your time is a good question, because everybody has one, no matter how much money they're making. Okay. So I get an answer, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 side hustle. Okay, fantastic. Let's say it's 2,000. Great. How many hours a week could you realistically commit to developing an income like that, of $2,000 monthly income, realistically? I know you're busy. You got a lot of stuff going on. You got a couple young kids, you're building an empire, you're doing all this other stuff. But 2,000 would still be meaningful. Okay, fantastic. How many hours a week do you think you could realistically commit? They say 7 hours, 10 hours, something like that. They give me 10 hours. Fantastic. The next question I got to know is, how many months would you be willing to work those 10 hours a week while you were building up a $2,000 monthly income before you just said, you know what, enough. I'm not going to do this anymore. 6 months. All right, fantastic. So Topaz, if I could show you how to develop a $2,000 monthly income, side hustle, working 10 hours a week over the course of the next 6 months, if I can map it out for you and you felt like it was real and you could actually do it, would you be willing to take the next step and learn a little bit more? Maybe figure out the product or learn about the company or meet some of the people or whatever. The if I would you.
No, is that the question number 6?
Yeah.
So notice how
If I
number
would you.
6 is the binary. The others are not.
If I would you. Yeah. So
If it starts with an if.
Well, I understand. But if I could
No,
show
I'm saying,
you,
but notice how your 5 questions, the first five are not binary.
right.
They're not binary. But the 6th one is like, we get to the end, you're closing the deal. It's an if.
And all I'm trying to do is get to the next step.
Right.
The goal
Yeah.
is to educate the person to the point that they understand what you have. So if I say I can take the most negative person, really, because I've done this for 35 years now, and I say, what'd you like best? I hated everything. Where are you on a scale of 1 to 10? I'm a -20. I get that. But hypothetically, I know you're not going to join. But if you did join, how much would you need to earn per month to make it worth your time? I know you're not going to, but just let's play with me.
But have you
Right?
ever gotten someone who gives you a super high number and very little time and very few months? That almost makes it impossible. Like if they're like, I want $20,000 a month for 2 hours a week, and I can do this in 2 months.
And then that's where I train people is when people give you unrealistic, which they almost never do.
Okay. But
They
for the
almost
ones
never-
you do, you just cut
The
them
ones
loose?
you do, you just say, look, how much you making now? Out of curiosity. So you're wanting like 5 times more than you're making right now, part-time as a side hustle. I said, look, one of your 3 numbers has to change.
Right.
Either the income's got to come down, the hours got to go up, or the months have to extend.
Yeah.
In order for this to even make sense. If you're not willing to change one of those numbers, I mean, this is not magic beans here. We're not, it's a real business. But I mean, are you saying that just because you're messing with me, or you're saying that because you're serious about those numbers? I'm not going to say you can't do it.
Yeah.
If you really think that you could make that happen, you're that influential, you're that powerful. I'll show you what you would have to do. If I could show you what you'd have to do in order to make that real, and you believed you could do it, would you be willing to take the next step, learn a little bit more? Great, let's go. So I'll either challenge them or I will say, I'm not going to tell you can't just because nobody ever has inside of this organization. You might be that unicorn, but I'll show you what you'd have to do in order to make it happen. So that's an example. I've got, for every stage, there's processes for handling objections, answering questions, that people have that are in the form of an objection that most of the time they're trying to clarify. What I tell people is when people ask questions to you, that's a gift to help you clarify what you have more than it is an obstacle that you should be afraid of. It used to just terrify me when people asked me questions. I thought they weren't interested, and I thought, they were just.
Well, they are, right? Because they're curious.
Right.
They're curious.
Right.
It's interesting.
Or they're pushing to see how much you believe in whatever it is that you're doing. They're poking at, just say, are you for real? So anyway, I'm a big fan of this whole.
Well, what comes up for me is that you have 6 questions for this, which basically, if I'm going to sit here, you have these 6 questions in a certain order that then contorts the space or takes the conversation into a journey that positions a certain kind of opportunity. And
yes, and the other thing is it gives people who are trying to build large organizations the ability to have something that they can kind of replicate.
Right.
So that it is a process that can be taught to the next person, then the next person, then the next person as they're building a team.
Yeah. And what comes up for me when I hear that is that you have these 6 questions, is that what I've distilled in the book is here are 12 questions that can take you on a journey to have a cathartic conversation so that you deepen your relationship with anybody you're intimate with.
With anybody.
Not just, anyone you're intimate with. Your best friend, you're like, what is that? Like, here you go. The first, it's a 5-act structure. The first 3 questions hark back to remind you of your mutual trust and respect for each other, of the uniqueness of what you created. Then the next 3 questions are about conflict. How do we handle conflict? The unresolved conflict, the conflict that's like been there that we haven't dealt with, the one that we have right now, the one that we're hesitant to explore. Then the 3rd act, questions 7 and 8, are the climax. These are the most vulnerable questions. And questions 9 and 10 are to start landing the plane, to bring gratitude to the conversation, what we're learning from each other. And then 11 and 12 are the most important questions in the sense that we don't know when we're going to stop seeing each other. We don't know when we're going to die. Let's talk to each other about the most important things. 11 is, if this were to be our last conversation, what would you never want me to forget? Remember, 12 is, why do you love me? So you land it. So you start now. If you buy the pack of cards, I'm going to send you the pack of cards. You might pull out the couples deck. Why do you love me with your wife? And you'll talk about it, and it'll work. But actually, if you ask in the sequence of here, we've asked 11 previous questions where you've built your trust. You've built this house of the conversation on the infrastructure of trust and respect and acknowledging what we built together, to then actually leaning into the conflict and how we deal with it differently, to actually going to the heart of the issue of vulnerability, to then offering acknowledgement and gratitude to each other. Then we end on number 12. Why do you love me? That answer of number 12 will be so much more profound because of the journey of the questions we've been on.
1,000%. I just want to jump in and say, I hope you're getting value from everything that we do at the Excellence Project. And if you do, make sure to follow us on all the social platforms. If you look up Eric Worre or the Excellence Project, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, everywhere where you get your content on social media. Find us over there. We'll continue the conversation. Back to the podcast. Is your book available now?
Oh my God, yeah. And as a matter
How
of
long
fact,
has it been out?
Since January.
Bro,
January.
you're about to sell a lot of books.
Oh, I mean, look.
Did you?
I just want to be a.
Did you go through a publisher, or did you self-publish?
Penguin Random House. Penguin Random, you know them, right? I don't need to.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do, which means you're not making as much money as you need to be making. But,
it's funny. It's funny. My perspective is, if it offers value, it will sell. If it doesn't, it's done. It's fine. Like, I've put it out in the world. Now my job is to show up. Like, I'm showing up here with you. Like, I show up with everyone. It's like the time of ego and like proving myself to my father, that's done. Thank God. It's about offer service.
How many people have you gone through these 12 questions with yourself?
These 12 questions right here?
Yeah.
Or like in my life?
12 questions in the book.
My wife.
That's it. The only one
my
person?
Wife. Yeah. My dad, I've gone through a few. I don't think we've finished all 12, which is not good. You want to sit down, but it's difficult to create the space for it. And it's kind of like, what is it?
How long did it take?
It's kind of like a baker. Sometimes bakers they get so sick of eating their own food, they just don't eat sweets anymore.
I understand.
I'm surrounded by this all the time.
I get it.
But I'll tell you this. My wife loves this, and she always wants to play. And I have a brother, Sapphire. We're all named after stones. I'm Topaz. He's Sapphire. He loves this. He loves it. He's like my biggest fan. And frankly, I pull out the card games when I'm having conflict with my wife, and I do not want to talk to her because I'm pissed. and she's pissed.
Really?
We're like yeah, when you're like something's happened with the kids and we're like, when you're like walking by and you're both like, like it's like, no, that's when we need the cards. And I'll tell you why that's when we need the cards.
Are the cards different than the book for some reason?
Well, the cards are just 200 questions.
They're just random.
They're random. Exactly. And they work in their own way.
The book is more a result of observation over 11 years.
Yeah. And it's teaching you like how to construct good questions. Why do these work? And so it's putting the power in your hands. So you have a tool to hold better conversations in your life, thereby having better conversations, better relationships.
So yeah, to me, like, what immediately comes to mind is, okay, I want to do the 12 questions with my wife. And then, all right, I want to do them with all my kids. And then I want to do them with my parents. And then I want to do them with my brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Like, okay, there's a list.
Yeah.
Right. And then deep personal relationships, friendships that have had, I mean, I have so many acquaintances, come through your life.
If you did that, that would be as healthy as all the stuff you're doing with the sauna and the hyperbaric chamber. And I mean, it absolutely would, because, you mentioned the Harvard study. I mean, one thing that really gives us a healthy life and physically is our emotional well-being, our emotional mental health. And that is in relationship to others.
Right.
It's tapping into that. I believe in that. I believe that tapping into humanity is a great source of vitality for life. And what do I mean by humanity? It's not something in you, it's something between us. How do you tap into that energy between us?
Let me ask you a question. So how many friends do you think, and you don't have to answer this question, but how many friends do you have that you would feel comfortable going through these 12 questions with?
Oh, well, here's the thing. My friends know who I am. I mean, I didn't create this out of a vacuum.
I know.
So they would be down to have these conversations with me.
Yeah.
Because they know who I am, and they're kind of like, it's not out of character for me to be saying, hey, Xander, let's do this. He'll be like, all right. And he'll break my balls, I'll say, Gavin, let's do this. Or Christoph.
But give me an idea on a number.
Oh, 15 at least.
Okay.
I mean, I think what's more interesting is, I'll tell you what, there is one friend that I don't want to have this conversation with. And I wonder why. And I think about why. And what comes up for me is that I'm learning is that
you don't want the drama that's going to come from it?
It's like, and I'm really questioning it, because I think now in my life, I have a lot of friends with cancer. I have one with ALS. I have four friends with cancer. I have one with
ALS, childhood friend.
One ALS, and he's
about done.
Knock on wood. And it's really come up for me, this question of friendship. And it's just a chapter I'm in. And there's a lot that I would play this with, but there's one that I wouldn't. And then it's like, well, why not? And that's something that I'm looking at. What is that about? Is that about, if you're not invested, is it because you don't believe the energy that you put into it will come back? Is it because it explores a vulnerable, like, what is that about? And that's something that I'm spending time in right now.
It's a part of yourself that you're not ready to face yet.
Maybe. No, I'm looking into that. Or maybe it's part of something's toxic. Usually, I don't want to throw toxicity around, because that's such a overused word, or just, but maybe that's what that is. I don't know.
But it's real.
Just something that I'm wondering about. It's,
do you want to just keep the peace, because you don't spend enough time with the person anyway.
No, it's not even, look, some people you have conversations with, and the conversation ends within 5 minutes, because the answers are just boom, 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 which is door shut, door shut, door shut, door shut. And you're like, okay, that is the place of our friendship. That is the place of relationship. There's someone very close in my life that I got door shut every time. Every time I say, let's go into this room of the house of our relationship and have this kind of conversation in this room, door shut. And it made me angry, because I was like, why are you not having, this is very important to me. So I went to therapy with this person to work it out. And I realized through therapy, was that they don't even know that room exists. They're not even interested to go in that room, and that room is scary as hell if that room exists. They don't even want to go there. So I can't be angry at them. They're not choosing not to go. They just don't. They don't. Not even. So I have to just accept this is the rooms we'll be in, and the rooms I want to go to, they don't want to, and we'll just never go there. And I just got to accept that.
So interesting. So I've gone through 4 phases in my life, big phases. Phase number 1 in my professional life, it was as a taker. My motto was like, whatever it takes. I'll do whatever it takes to get to success, to get to that that level or whatever. If people get hurt, people get hurt. You know, hey, this business is war and all this stuff. I'm not proud of it, but that was part of my journey, and I was known. You know, people know the takers in the world. I was one.
Yeah.
I decided that was bad. I was ashamed of it. There were consequences that I was unaware of. You know, this was in my 20s. I was unaware of, while I was being that taker. And then I moved to I stopped being a taker, but I turned into a fighter. I was always ready to fight. I was ready to fight for a cause, ready to fight for my friends, ready to fight this person, this policy, that. I was always ready to fight. I read phase 2, the fighter. Yeah. I read this book called Selling the Dream by Guy Kawasaki, the chief marketing architect from Apple. And he said, if you don't have an enemy, you don't have a mission. So I was always looking for enemies. I misinterpreted that piece of it. So I was fighting all the time, and I'd win most of the time when I fight. But if you're winning, that means there's losers out there.
Right. At what cost?
You always have drama. There's just constant drama in my life.
What was the motto of that phase? Fight anywhere.
Motto? If you don't have an enemy, you don't have a mission.
Got it. Okay, great. Okay.
So then phase 3 was, I said, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm done with the drama. I'm just going to be a giver. I'm just going to give without expectation. And I found out that there is no end to what people will take if you give without boundaries. They will just suck you dry and without any complaint. They'll take everything and they will abuse you in 1,000 ways. So I said, this sucks. This is not fun. And what I'm trying to become in this 4th phase of my life is a giver with boundaries. Where I really struggle with things like unconditional love. I think love has conditions.
You're talking about in your family, for instance, right? You're talking about your family now.
I'm talking about period. Not just family. If somebody's abusive to you,
where you draw the line
repetitively, and will not change, there needs to be consequences for that. And the way I learned to view life was like in concentric circles, like a bullseye target. Inside is just me, right? And then the next circle are the people I really trust and important people in my life. And then next circle, next circle.
Wait, this is how you see it now, or you've always seen it this
how
way?
I see it now.
Now,
how I
phase
see it
4.
now.
Okay, yeah,
right. So if somebody does something that is that goes against my standards or doesn't align with my values,
they move out.
They just move out.
They move out.
That's okay.
Like you don't cut them out; you just push them to the edge.
They just find their own They find their own circle, and I don't try to change that orbit.
Yeah.
If they change that behavior, then they move closer.
Then the orbit will come back. Sure.
Yeah, and if they get worse, they go farther and farther out, and I spend less and less time, and I make less and less of an effort because All
right, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. So you're a grandparent now, you told me.
Yeah.
You said, right? You've gone through 4, you've had success, you've had failures, I'm sure. You've learned, you've grown, you've seen, you've been around the block a few times.
Yeah.
You've gone through, and you're cognizant enough to know that you've been through these 4 phases, and you're responsible enough to acknowledge the things you're not proud of. You're looking at a 22-year-old, they're in one of your experiences, in one of your GoPro experience, right? Seminar.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, all right, what's your advice to us then? Like, do you suggest we go through these 4 phases? If not, what phases, what do you tell them? What do you think is the best path for someone to take?
I think be a giver with boundaries. Keep your heart open. Just straight to it.
Don't necessarily evolve through phases, just be in that phase.
Straight to it. Be a giver with boundaries.
Do you think you could have boundaries if you weren't taken by? Meaning that you were just a giver? Like, do you think do you think you have to go through these phases?
You can, but I don't think some people never were takers. They were just givers. Some people started as a giver, they stayed as a giver, and they get taken advantage of their whole life. And they never challenge bad behavior because they don't want to rock the boat. Some people dim their light in order to not make other people feel bad. It happens all the time. So I remember as growing up, kind of a people pleaser, right?
Sure.
Wanting to get the approval of my mentors,
Sure.
And I had this Mount Rushmore of people that I got to be close to. Did you ever know of a person by the name of Jim Rohn? You ever heard that name?
So that's Tony Robbins' guru. Not
his
guru,
mentor.
but mentor. Yeah.
Yes.
You're
so
in the same.
There's Jim Rohn, there's Og Mandino, greatest salesman in the world, people like Les Brown and all of these different types of people for years were virtual mentors via audio programs in my car.
Sure.
And I used to pretend I was driving around and they were in my back seat just talking to each other, and I got to listen in on their conversations, right? So 5 years later, after this is happening, after I'm imagining this, I find myself in my car in Dallas, Texas, and in the backseat of my car, Jim Rohn, Og Mandino, and Les Brown in real life, having a conversation, right? And I'm working with them, and they're just legends. And I wanted so much for this Mount Rushmore to notice me, to validate me, to be closer in relation in my orbit, to be closer in my orbit. Yeah. And frankly, I was just a kid, and their orbit was already full. And so I was out on the fringes, and if you can imagine, like behind me, 4 or 5 people facing the other direction. And they're busy with their lives. And I'm jumping up and down trying to, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. Yeah. And every once in a while they look over their shoulder and they say, oh, hey kid, nice work. Nice job. Yeah. They weren't hating on me. But biggest change of my life is I finally got tired of jumping up and down, trying to get their approval, even though they knew my name, even though they respected my work, even though, it just wasn't going to be what I wanted it to be. Right. I realized I went, if I'm trying to do this for them, I wonder if somebody's trying to do this to me. So I just turned around and there was this huge group of people that had been waiting for me to notice them that were my natural tribe. And I went, oh, and guess what? Once I poured into the people that were naturally drawn to my orbit, the Mount Rushmore turned around. Right. And they were more interested now.
So it's,
it
2 things come up for me. Sorry. Do you want to finish that? Go ahead.
Please. No, all I would just tell you is some of the most important relationships of my life were distant, personally, but impactful to me in my quality of life. So we weren't best buddies, but they were very, very valuable to me. And every time I had with them, I cherished it. I remember it. I valued it. They knew I did. but I was a mentee, and that's okay. And some I became the mentor.
Sure.
After a certain point, but I was okay. I learned to be okay with people picking where they wanted to be in my orbit based upon their actions and based upon their desires. I was okay about that. Even if I wanted them to be closer,
Yeah.
I let them be where they wanted to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Thanks for sharing that. Two things come up for me. One is the realization that, because in this year's process of my life and work and building a business and blah, 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 it's the line that just because it doesn't happen when you want it to happen doesn't mean it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Just because it's not happening when you want it to happen does not mean it's not going to happen. It can still happen, just not on your time frame. Maybe it's on the universe's time frame. It's life's time frame. Be patient, have faith, keep doing the work. Which goes to the second thought about
just because what's not going to happen.
Okay, you have an expectation like I want them to notice me. Okay.
Yes.
So, and they're not noticing me. That's because it's not on your time frame. Your time frame is they should notice me now.
Yeah.
When you let go of when they're going to notice you and you focus on doing the work and offering value, then they will notice you. But
I went a step further and saying it's okay if they don't notice me.
That's fine. But what I'm saying is the take home that I'm offering is just because it's not happening on your time frame does not mean it won't happen.
Correct.
It can still happen. So oftentimes people get stuck like, oh, it's not happening. It needs to happen now. It's like, hold on. It can happen, just not now. You're not the dictator of everything in the universe. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't stop doing the work. Doesn't mean you shouldn't stop believing and have faith and do what's necessary from your part to show up. Which goes to the second concept, which is I have a friend he's in Saturday Night Live and he's runs the music department there. And he told me that he was talking to someone and they gave him, it's not my, metaphor, but I found it really useful that he's talking to I don't even know who it was, but some musician was saying, you know what? It's really interesting how life is. When you're starting out, you're like a rocket ship taking off from Earth. And it takes so much energy to get out into space. You got two huge rockets and you need all this energy, kind of like your phase one, which is like whatever it takes. You're like, I'm going to do whatever it takes. And you got these rockets and you're going out. But once you get out of the atmosphere, what's the first thing that happens? The spaceship lets go of the rockets. It cannot operate that way in outer space. It's a different environment. And what this guy was saying, this famous musician was saying, is like, once you get out there, it's a different way of operating. You don't need the rocket ships. You just blow and you move. And it said, you have to let go of the rocket ships. You have to let go of the things that got you to get out into space. But now it's a different way of being. And I think that's interesting. Like you found that now in your phase of life. I'm not saying this is true. I'm just saying what comes up for me is that you're in a different phase of life. There's another way of being.
I would amend it slightly.
Great.
The metaphor.
Great.
People like to talk about the rabbit and the turtle, and the turtle is the hero in the story, because the turtle, inch by inch, it's a cinch. Step by step, you win the race. Slow and steady wins the race. All that stuff. I think entrepreneurially, that's nonsense. I think you need to be the rabbit, and then the turtle, and then the rabbit again, and then the turtle. It's like if you get in an airplane and you want to take off, you can't be the turtle. You will never get off the ground. You'll get movement, but you won't get progress. If you give it 10% throttle, you'll go down the runway, but you're going to have to turn around because you're going to run out of runway. You got to give it 100% to get off the ground, to get to an altitude. Then you can level off. You want to get to another altitude, you got to do it again. So what I encourage entrepreneurs is once a year, be the rabbit. Once a year, 30 to 90 days, be the rabbit and get your business like I'm sure you're doing right now. I can sense it in you. You're in a bit of a rabbit phase to have some initiatives get launched to be able to impact the world. You're not in the turtle phase. Slow and steady wins the race. You're in the rabbit phase. And turtle will come after that, where you'll support it, you'll maintain it, you'll tweak it, you'll improve it. You might be in the turtle phase when it comes to all these conversations, 1,200 conversations or whatever, however many you've had, because that's just, we just keep doing that. But with these new decks and everything else, you're in the rabbit phase. So I think you go back and forth. I think successful entrepreneurs, if they do a 130 to 90 day run per year, and then they support it the rest of the time, because you can't hold it. You're right. You can't hold that rocket ship, that booster thrust. You'll burn yourself out. You'll burn out your relationships, all your fun and everything else. But then support it the rest of the time and make everybody feel like you're still running 1,000 miles an hour when you're not.
Yes. So yes, and let me riff on top.
Yes, and?
I love yes, and which is have the wisdom to know when to sprint like a rabbit and when to be consistent like a turtle. Because sometimes you get burnt out and then you're like forced to be a turtle. Sometimes you're trying to be a turtle when no, this is the time to sprint. So have the wisdom to know the difference, and that just comes with experience, doesn't it? Also, comes with experience.
I think so. Well, because for entrepreneurs, they can get into a success coma real easy. And what that means is they're making money, they're kind of cruising along, but they're just taking selfies and kissing babies and signing autographs. They're not doing what they did to build what they built, and they're putting in, they're showing up. They'll be on a Zoom here and there or whatever, but they're not building, and they don't even realize that the fire is gone.
My dad's got a beautiful line. My dad's a brilliant guy in organizational change culture, and he says, "You're either growing or you're dying."
It's true.
Like
it's true.
Those are the only two options. It's like,
so success coma is people who are dying. Right. They just don't realize it because it looks on the outside that they're successful.
It's all great.
And then they find another project and off they go. So that's what I feel like you can hold up to about 90 days of really, really hitting it. And then if you're leading an organization, if you're a leader, you need to make it appear to the world like you're the rabbit when you're acting like a turtle.
Sure.
So they need to always feel like you're the rabbit, because if you send the message that it's time for us all to be a turtle right now,
they'll all slow down.
They will all virtually stop. I make this list. I make this list. My last name's Worry. It's my Worry 100. These are my 100 most meaningful relationships, business relationships.
100 most meaningful relationships. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Okay.
Yep. Business relationships, right? Not family not included.
So you have a list of people. These are 1 to 100 people. Yes. And every year you change it up?
I'll make a new one once a year. I found one that's like 7 years old. And guess how many are still on the list? 7 years later. 18. 18 are still on the list. But
and is that because of you or them? Is that because of you or them?
I just don't believe you stay in parallel paths for a long period of time.
Yeah.
We come into contact with each other for a moment, and then, they've got another agenda, or somebody becomes gets divorced and, goes in a different direction, or that somebody moves to another country, or I'm in a different phase of life right now. I'm 48, and I just was in London working, and I saw a lot of my friends I hadn't seen since before the pandemic, and the question came up, so what's next? What's next like this? And I realized I don't have the ambition like I used to. And I was thinking like, Ed, and I'm like, is there a problem with me? Like, do I need to go on testosterone now? Like, what's going on? Have I lost the hunger? What is this about? And I don't have an answer yet, other than a thesis, some suppositions. One of them is that a lot of my energy is going to my two children. I got a 4-year-old and 18-month-old. Yeah. My energy's on building that family. And to do that at 48, bro, I don't think I could do it. At 48, that's a young man's game.
Is it? I love it. I'm having the time.
No. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying I'm impressed because you have a certain rhythm at that age that to give up your sleep and to have things noisy and whatever, and out of your traditional rhythms is, maybe that's the season. That's fine. It can be there's nothing wrong with a turtle season. Nothing wrong at all.
I feel it's putting me in a position where I can really drop into those moments. I mean, by no means am I a super present dad who's like an angel, and obviously, but I do drop into those moments with times when I'm like, this is the best. Like my son is learning how to go to the bathroom alone, like at 3 a.m. I'm just like, amazing. This is better than anything. Yeah. And I don't know if I would have that at 32 or 28 or 22.
I will tell you what's happened to me. I've been in a success coma probably 4 times. I'm 60 years old, just turned 60.
Okay.
4 times. And not in one now. But like right after pandemic, I mean, we hit so big, so many different things that I kind of went into one without realizing it. But I think that there's 2 phases in a life, in a career. One is accumulation to, for security, safety, to provide, take care of yourself, put your oxygen mask on first, that kind of stuff. So you can, really do the things you want to do, live the life that you want to live. Don't have to compromise, those types of things. And then, and I think that there's certain fuels for that. Like the fighter stage fueled that like crazy. Sure. I mean, having an enemy, it fueled accumulation like crazy. And I'm a competitive person, right? Yeah. So give me somebody to compete with. I'm good. But then phase 2 is contribution. And what drives me today, and I can tell drives you, is contributing to the lives of others in some meaningful way. So that drives me on a level that it's a super fuel. I asked Mr. Rohn, Jim Rohn, once backstage. I said, Mr. Rohn, why are you still doing this? He's like 70. And why are you still doing this? Traveling the world? And he smiled and he said, to show up in somebody else's testimonial. He said, in this audience, 5 years from now, there's going to be somebody that said, taps me on the shoulder. He said, it's the tap on the shoulder, young man. He said, somebody's going to tap me on the shoulder in an airport or somewhere at an event, and they're going to show me the notes, and they're going to say, Mr. Rohn, I was there that day, and I took the notes, and it changed my whole life and changed my family. He said, that's why I'm here. He said, what else am I going to do?
That's my dad. That's straight up my dad. Lives. My dad's 87. Really? He's still rolling, man. That guy's so built, so tough. And he does it. He loves it. He's like, I didn't do work a day of my life, even though the guy's the hardest working guy I know. Yeah. I mean, but he's there. He's like, because I'm helping people. I'm doing my bit to contribute to society, to the world through my work. It's like, boom. It's so fascinating. What were some of the biggest surprises that came out of your podcast and setting up all of these? What were some of the things that shocked? Was there any shocking things that just like went, wow, okay, I did not expect that? You threw a question in that was maybe you thought would be an innocent question or a simple question, and it ended up being very complex. I mean, an early one of my favorites is Marcella and Rock, which premiered at Sundance, and then New Yorker Magazine bought it for its first video on its digital channel. Marcella and the Rock? Marcella and Rock, not The Rock like Dwayne Rock. Marcella and Rock, it's a pair who've been on a number of times on the And we're on the YouTube channel, so it's not necessarily a podcast, it's a series. But we're in the room and she asks him a question. And I don't remember what the question was, but he takes a deep breath and he's this big African-American man with sunglasses, dreads. She asked him a question. And his response was like, I've been faithfully nonviolent for the last 10 years. And me and the crew were like, whoa, wait, what? And they proceeded to have the most incredible conversation. incredible conversation. You can look it up on YouTube. It's Marcellin Rock. I think it's called The Most Honest Conversation. It went to Sundance. It's such an incredible, honest conversation that we can all relate to. And this is someone who was on death row, incarcerated, and yet we can learn an immense, powerful lesson about life and relationships through their conversation. And I think we just filmed in Durham, North Carolina in collaboration with a client doing conversations around HIV. So healthcare practitioners talking to people who either are HIV prep or living with HIV, and my director of photography at the end of the day, I said, how was that for you? Because I'm always checking in with the crew after, because it's quite heavy. We sit through 5, 6, 7 conversations. It's like 7 therapy sessions. And he says, I got to tell you, I am so honored and privileged because I would never have we just dropped in on a conversation of a gay black man and a transgender person, and like, I would never as a white male have the opportunity and the honor to sit in on a real honest conversation like that. And I got to see that. I got to see their world for a sec. And not only that, but I saw a bit of myself in their conversation. Right. And that there's always surprises. And I think the thing that gets me is the idea that our hearts are built to connect. Our hearts are built to connect. And yet
how much continue. Sorry.
Well, look, I'm sitting there in the room. I can't tell you how many times I'm sitting in a room full of where it's just 3 cameras, 2 people talking, and silence for an hour and 15 minutes. And I'm just sitting there watching them, which is, I'm watching the monitor. Thinking, if you look at this is kind of a really interesting social experiment where people are just talking. Harken back to The Artist is Present and Marina Abramovich. Why is that so powerful? Because how often do we actually just sit there and sit with a person and really look at them and be present and give them our time and attention?
Right. It's a gift.
It's a gift. It's a huge gift. And you remember that film, Her?
Yeah.
Spike Jonze made that film, Her, with Phoenix.
I just watched it again recently.
Well, when I watched that, I realized that a big part of love is time. And we don't realize that. And what do I mean by time? There's a scene there where Joaquin Phoenix takes Scarlett Johansson's voice, Her, on a date with his 2 friends. And they're sitting on like overlooking the ocean or something, having a date. And he later realizes that on that date, she was having a date with 10,000 other people at the same time. Because she could. She's an AI. And what was for him a commitment of time, he's never going to live that afternoon ever again. He can't be in 5 places. Once he can only be there once. He is giving his time and attention to her. But for her, she could be in 10,000 places with 10,000 people. It's not the same. It's not commensurate. It's the same kind of love. So love is an aspect of time. Who are you giving your time to? And part of the time is, who are you giving your presence? Who are you giving your attention to? Don't take that for granted. What are you doing with that time? What are you doing with that attention? What are you doing with that love?
How do you balance that with your work and everything else? How do you find? How do you find that balance? Because you're traveling around doing all this, filming and producing and creating and still raising a family and all of that. How do you figure out where is it?
Well, the truth is, if I'm gonna at this point, I have an incredible superpower weapon, which is my children. If I'm going to show up to your event and I'm going to spend 3 days away from my kids, I'm going to bring it. I'm going to bring it like a hurricane. Like, I'm going to bring all my energy and I'm not there alone. My wife is there with me. My kids are there with me because I should be with them right now. So I find now when I show up and I bring that much more value because I'm showing up with a lot of energy and a lot of value and focus because I really want to be with them. And so I basically compress the times that I leave the home, and I find that valuable. That's why I wrote to your producer when I saw the background. I was like, oh, great. Wait, if they're in New York, I want to be there in 2 weeks. Let's do this in person. You guys are in Vegas. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be in Vegas soon, but I was thinking.
Sometime soon, hopefully.
Oh my God, it would be great. But I think for me, the balance is just, what's important to me right now is the family and kids. And look, right now, I'm very fortunate in my life. I'm asking 2 questions. It's like, what are the questions you're asking yourself? I ask 2 questions. 1, how can I prepare my children? What experiences, what environments can I put them in so that they can be the most embodied selves in the future and offer value to their community. When they're 25, 28, 45, 35, how can they offer value to their community, whoever they're with? And two, I have this powerful format at the end. How can I apply it so that I can help the world in whatever shape or form? Like those are the two simple things I'm asking. And just that's where the energy goes. And that's how I and also look, I just moved down to Uruguay, and people are like, why did you move to Uruguay? Many Americans don't even know where that is on the map. Well, it's because there's more time here. There's more time. There's more time.
That's consciously the decision.
Well, the decision was, if I'm fortunate enough that most of my work is online, I have a luxury. Because my work is not physically proximate. It's online. I'm doing this Zoom call with you, right? I'm doing these podcasts. My team is remote based literally around the world, from the Philippines to Australia to Colorado to Mexico and here. Sure. So I can choose. So where am I choosing? To the first question, the experience, the environment to raise my kids in, I want them to see the stars. I want them to know the stars. I want them to know the sunsets. I want them to be able to walk around in safety and freedom. I want them to speak different languages. Like I want to be able to drive with no traffic and no traffic lights. I want to be in a small community where everyone knows each other. So if you burn a bridge, then all the bridges get burnt, because it's like, how do you show up for people? I want to be in that place. I want them to be in that place. So that's why I chose here. And I'm finding that in this pace, there's more time. And then what happens in more time is I have more time to deliver, because there's less distractions.
So it's such a conscious, interesting decision.
It comes because I just spend a lot of time on the questions I ask myself.
Yeah.
For a long time. Yeah.
I love that. I have a few more questions for you.
Great.
And I'm sure this won't be our last conversation. I'm sure we'll have more conversations.
I hope not.
Yeah.
Eric, it's been good.
So for people who build teams, what's one good question to ask somebody on your team? If you're a leader of a team, can you think of one good question to ask a team member that would be kind of a go-to that you would recommend that they ask? Or some general theme?
Sure. Let me give you three.
Great.
One, first, that always comes, how does conflict make us better? Because you want to create an environment where it's okay to have conflict, because there's a lot of energy in conflict. The question is not if conflict exists. The question is, are we harnessing it to make it constructive? So by asking that question, make us better. So regardless of what they say, by you asking that question, you are priming them to look for the answer of how to make it better, which means you're telling them that conflict is not necessarily bad.
Right. Love that.
So, okay. Super X, right? 2, how do we what could we achieve together that we can't alone?
Well, I'm just writing it down.
Yeah. What can we achieve together that we can't alone? Because otherwise you wouldn't be in a team.
That we can't alone.
Yeah.
Love that.
But it speaks about the synergy, and that gives a cohesive group. Like, hey, it's not just me, it's not just you. Because if we could do the same, why are we working together? No. There's something here that's we're capable of that we can't do alone. Which then leads to the reasons of why you're invested in the conflict. Why am I going to put up with this conflict? Because there's something we could build together that we can't alone.
Love it. What's the third one?
How do we complement one another, and why? And why is really just to augment it. Because if we're all the same, then there are bigger blind spots. And if we complement each other because we're different, there are less blind spots, but there's more conflict. Right?
Yep.
So by acknowledging the compliment, it's like, hey, of course you're looking at the product in this way because you're going to sell it, but I'm looking at it as the product manager or whatever. I'm looking at a different way. How do we complement each other? So we understand the differences, which is what respect is. In my opinion, respect, this comes from my dad, which is respect is the acknowledgement that you have validity to your point of view. And I respect it, even though I disagree with it. But I acknowledge that you have a valid POV and you acknowledge that I have a valid POV, and that's respect. And trust is the belief that we're both going the same spot. I trust that you want to end up in the same spot that I do. Now you see a different path to get there. I see a different path to get there, but I trust that we're going to get there. If I take your path, we're going to end up in the same spot. Where do you end up with not trust is because I don't trust Eric because he wants to go that way. He wants to end up in the mountain and I want to end up by the ocean. So clearly I'm not going to go on his path. But if we both know we want to end up at the same spot, and you're like, Topaz, trust me, we're going to end up there, but it's better to go through the jungle. We're like, all right, I know that he wants to get to where I want to get to. I trust him. Let's go on that journey.
Right. The Jeff Bezos would call that disagree and commit. There's a lot of times where he will actively disagree with a decision, but commit to it fully because that person is more
convinced, right?
And not like trying to say I told you so later or anything, but really commit.
Yeah.
Which I love. I love the concept of that, of the whole thinking of it. How do we complement one another and why? All of these are so great and important, I think, in order to be able to build connection.
I'm going to send you the coworkers deck and the team building deck.
No. Listen, I'm going to get your contact information and I'm going to get all of them. So, and I don't want anything free. Friends don't ask for free stuff from friends. So
really?
I'm happy to buy. No, I mean, come on.
All right, great.
I think that's one of the things that is annoying to me is that
but
friends
for me,
that
I'll
are
tell you-
friends with other entrepreneurs expect everything, for nothing. I like supporting business people.
That's very kind of you. For me, it's the idea that if it moves you, just like you mentioned to me at the beginning of this podcast, you're talking about H Sleep and how it's a great product. If you love something, you let people know about it.
Yeah.
And and people trust your taste, trust your opinion. So I know you're going to love this. And then that to me is enough because then you're going to put it in more people's hands. That for me.
Yeah.
is
We got to talk about how we can do some stuff together. We work with large organizations that need help, making stronger connection. So I'm going to include everything, all of the different, your different vehicles and products and YouTube channels and podcasts and your book and links and all that stuff so people can check it out. I think deeper human connection is what it's all about. And I love the fact that you've devoted a portion of your life to figuring out, in a non-clinical way, how to actually meaningfully create it. So I love that.
Thank you.
Like I said, with the Abramovich exhibit, just witnessing connection and you witnessing 1,200 or so of these conversations or episodes has had to have a transformative impact on you. And I will tell you, 12 years your senior, while you're figuring out what's the next thing, it will make itself apparent. Just don't stress about it.
Right.
You have way more time than you think. I'd give you everything I have for 48. Everything. I'd give you. I'd stack it all up and hand it all to you with a big red bow around it. The value of those 12 years is a real gift. And we're living in a magical time when we can actually have an impact on people. No matter where we are in the world. So Topaz Adizes, I want to thank you for your time and your questions. I want to thank you for answering mine. And this has been one of those fun conversations that, there's podcasts that I do and I post and I don't listen to. This won't be one of them. This is one that I'll soak up. a bit more because it's so to the root of what I do and what I want to do. So
Great.
So thanks for that. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Eric. It's been good. I really appreciate your time, and the conversation's been awesome. Thank you.
To be continued.
Yeah.
So I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Topaz Adizes. That was a fun conversation and so interesting to talk about the questions that we have, the questions that we ask, and how to build stronger relationships with the people that we care about, whether it's family or people we do business with, or our customers or our clients. I don't think there's any end to the value that we can get from deeper human connection. That's what this is all about. I've included all the links in the show notes. So if you want more information about this, I hope you do. Hope you pick up the book, 12 Questions for Love. Hope you check out his different resources. And I hope you share this with somebody that you love. Okay? Until next time, everybody, have a great day. And I'll see you soon.